The story begins with a fisherman in Irish waters doing his job. He pulls up the net from his boat and realizes he has caught a woman. Syracuse approaches her and calls for help on the radio, but no one responds. He releases the woman while asking if she is okay. He gives her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and manages to bring her back to consciousness. She asks why she is alive, and he says all he knows is that he found her in his net. Syracuse takes the woman inside the boat and tells her she needs to go to a hospital, but she refuses, not wanting to see anyone. The man asks her name, but she says she doesn't know, so Syracuse assumes she may have lost her memory in the water. On the way, Syracuse again mentions taking her to a hospital, but she begs him not to. He tells her he knows a place where no one will see her. They arrive at the house of Syracuse's deceased mother, and the woman tells him she should be dead. Syracuse offers her his lunch and then leaves to pick up his daughter, Annie, who has kidney failure and needs weekly dialysis at the clinic. Syracuse tells his daughter a story about a fisherman who was working until he caught a girl in his nets. After Annie's dialysis, the clinic gives her an electric wheelchair. They head to the home of his ex-wife, Maura, and her partner, Alex, to leave Annie with them. Syracuse returns to his mother's house and finds the woman there. They talk and then board the boat to go fishing. While fishing, the woman says he can call her Ondine, which means woman from the water. Syracuse sets some traps to catch something but has no luck. Ondine starts singing in a strange language, causing him to catch several lobsters. He attributes the fishing success to her singing, saying she brings him luck. Later, Syracuse asks Ondine for help with the lobsters, and she asks what he does with them. He replies that he just sells them. Syracuse returns a couple of lobsters to the water, explaining to Ondine that he is saving them for a rainy day. Syracuse and Ondine get into his car, and he tells her he plans to share the profits from the sales with her because she brought him luck. However, Ondine mentions that she does not want to see anyone. Syracuse sells the lobsters and buys Ondine a dress as a thank you for her help at the store. He takes advantage of the seller being distracted and steals more clothes for Ondine. Later, Syracuse picks up Annie and agrees to race with her while she uses her wheelchair. On the way, he continues the story from the other day, mentioning that a woman sang on a boat. Annie says that maybe she is a Selkie. Syracuse drops Annie off at her house, but she grows curious about her father's story and decides to follow him. Meanwhile, Syracuse returns to Ondine. He gives her the clothes, and she kisses him on the cheek and thanks him. Syracuse asks Ondine how long she plans to stay at the house, and she says it depends on him. He tells her she can stay forever if she wants. Syracuse gets back in his truck while Annie watches from afar, suspecting that her father is hiding something. She decides to go to the library to learn more about Selkie people. Meanwhile, Syracuse goes to church to confess how long he has been sober and that he stole clothes from a store. The priest disapproves, but Syracuse mentions the clothes were for a woman he pulled out of the water. The priest asks him to keep him updated on the situation. Moments later, Annie is researching Selkies while Ondine is tidying up the house. Annie goes to her grandmother's house to continue her research and meets Ondine. The girl says her father told her a story about her and asks if she has magical powers. Ondine dodges the question, so they introduce themselves. Annie tells her she already knows she is a Selkie, and Ondine plays along. Annie says she must tell her the whole truth about her life as a Selkie if they are to be friends, and Ondine agrees to chat with her. Meanwhile, Syracuse is in the library asking for books about Selkies, but the librarian says they have all been borrowed by his daughter. Later, Annie meets up with some friends who ask to borrow her wheelchair, but one of them throws it in the water, making it stop working. Annie decides to take it to her mother's partner to fix it. Elsewhere, a man watches the seascape and then leaves. Moments later, Syracuse invites Ondine to go fishing with him and asks her to take the helm. However, she becomes scared when she sees a motorboat pass by. Syracuse tells Ondine that he doesn't think she can steer with her foot, so she starts singing to attract fish to the net. Syracuse pulls up the net and tells Ondine it's odd because she can't catch salmon with the type of net he's using. Minutes later, the motorboat approaches the fishing boat, and Syracuse asks Ondine to hide the catch to inspect and realize that Syracuse has managed to catch a large amount of salmon. Suspecting him of using an illegal fishing method, they try to figure out how he did it until they find Ondine, who explains how Syracuse caught the fish. The men don't entirely believe her but decide to leave. Syracuse asks Ondine if she's okay, and she says no. He then asks if she wants to sell the salmon in the village, explaining that it no longer matters if people see her since the guards already have. They sell the fish at the dock and then meet up with Annie to go to a clothing store. Annie helps Ondine with the clothes and asks her father if Selkies wear clothes, but Syracuse just laughs at her theories. Minutes later, Ondine comes out of the dressing room to ask for his opinion on her outfit, but they soon realize that the townspeople are observing the woman's beauty. The next day, Annie visits Ondine, and they talk. Ondine asks if she knows how to swim, to which Annie replies no. Ondine offers to teach her, saying it would be very relaxing. Meanwhile, Syracuse goes to his ex-wife's house, where Maura tells him that Annie has already gone to her grandmother's house. She then asks if his water woman lives there. Syracuse dodges the question, mentioning that he wants to keep his daughter all day since the festival starts at 3. Maura asks if he will take Ondine as well and sarcastically comments that they will surely go looking for pearls in the water. Back with Ondine, she teaches Annie how to swim, but they soon find something covered in seaweed. Annie explains that it's probably her seal skin and suggests they bury it so she can stay on land for 7 more years without having to return to the water. Later, Syracuse, Annie, and Ondine are on the boat to watch the festival. On the way, Annie keeps mentioning that she is sure Ondine is a seal woman. When they arrive, Annie continues to bother Ondine by saying she is a selkie. Seeing that Ondine keeps denying it, she throws herself into the water to test her. Ondine dives in to rescue Annie and brings her back to the boat, telling her father that Ondine can breathe underwater. Later, Syracuse takes Annie to Maura, who begins scolding him for being neglectful, but he decides to ignore her. As he leaves, Syracuse and Ondine arrive home, where he reveals that he and his ex-wife were alcoholics for years. He decided to stop drinking for Annie's sake, but Maura didn't like it and kicked him out of the house. Ondine asks why he doesn't stay with Annie, and Syracuse explains that the government believes his daughter is better off with her mother. Syracuse then moves closer to Ondine for a romantic encounter. Afterwards, he asks her age, but she doesn't answer. Moments later, Syracuse returns to the church to confess. He tells the priest that Ondine brought him a lot of luck and he fears losing her, not just for that reason, but because he is starting to fall in love with her. As he leaves the church, the man who was watching the sea the other day approaches Syracuse and asks what he calls the woman who was always with him on the boat. Syracuse doesn't answer and leaves in his truck. Later, Syracuse accompanies his daughter during her dialysis and then takes her to Maura. When they arrive, they realize his ex-wife and her partner are not there, so they decide to go out and look for them. Meanwhile, the same man who bothered Syracuse goes to the house where Ondine is staying. She notices his presence and tries to run away to hide with Syracuse. He and his daughter find Maura, and she asks him to leave Annie with her, but he refuses, saying he will take her home. Annie reassures her father that she will be fine. Syracuse returns home and notices Ondine is not there, so he starts searching until he finds her under a small bridge. Ondine tells him that the mysterious man was looking for her, so Syracuse suggests she make a wish for the man to disappear since, according to legend, selkies can grant wishes. Ondine replies that she wants to disappear too and says she wants to go to sleep, so Syracuse carries her back to the house. On the other hand, Maura leaves the place drunk while carrying her husband and Annie in the van, and soon they collide with that mysterious subject, causing an accident to his family. Moments later, Syracuse and Ondine pass through the same area and soon notice there has been an accident, realizing that it is Annie. Syracuse heads to the hospital. When Annie wakes up, she asks her father what happened, but he tells her he doesn't know. In the hallways, they carry the mysterious subject on a stretcher when Syracuse realizes that Ondine is in that place. He shouts to her that he will look for her when he leaves the hospital. Then, a doctor tells Syracuse that Alex has passed away, although his kidney is compatible with Annie, so they will have to operate on the girl to take advantage of this. Meanwhile, Ondine goes to that man, but he claims her for speaking another language and then asks her to come home. She refuses, saying she now has a family in that place. Later, Syracuse is glad that his daughter has come out of the operation well, so the man believes that Dean's wish has come true. The next day, Syracuse and the others attend Alex's funeral. Then, Maura tells him that he can have custody of Annie, but in exchange, he will have to get her out of Dean's life. Maura invites Syracuse to have a drink, and the man decides to drink due to his lack of willpower, breaking his streak of sobriety. Afterward, Syracuse leaves the bar and goes to Ondine, telling her that he will take her home. The next day, Syracuse takes Ondine to a lighthouse, but upon arrival, he begins to act aggressively toward her, still under the influence of alcohol. Moments later, Syracuse tells Ondine that she will be fine there. Then, the fisherman returns to the boat, and Ondine notices this. She tries to catch up with him, but he tells her that she is surely not human, making their relationship impossible. He then abandons her, but Ondine refuses to accept this idea and decides to dive into the sea to try to go after him. That night, Syracuse takes his daughter to his house. Annie asks him about Ondine, to which he replies that he had to leave. However, Annie mentions that she will return since she left something important. The next day, Annie watches television and sees a program in which a man sings the same song that Ondine sang. Syracuse realizes that this song is an Icelandic tune and acknowledges that he made a mistake when he abandoned Ondine. Syracuse begins searching for Ondine until he manages to find her and notices that she is lying on the ground. He covers her with a blanket, and Ondine confesses to him that she is a fugitive convict because she trafficked narcotics in Romania with that mysterious man who was actually her husband. Later, her husband helped her escape by swimming with the merchandise until she became unconscious in the water, being rescued by Syracuse. The man then asks her for her real name. She answers that she is Joan. They arrive home and meet Joan's husband, Vec. He tells them that he will end his life unless Ondine reveals where the merchandise is. Soon, Syracuse begins to fight Vec. Minutes later, an ally of Vec arrives and threatens to finish Syracuse off. The woman decides to show Vec where she has hidden the drugs. They go to the place where they had buried the object, covered in seaweed, but notice it's not there. Ondine mentions that she changed the object's location because she truly believed it was Joan's sealskin and tells them that the object is in the lobster traps. Vec and the man try to retrieve the merchandise, but soon Joan remembers that her husband doesn't know how to swim. She decides to push him into the water, while Vec desperately tries to save his merchandise before losing his life. Tragically, he drowns. Moments later, the police take Ondine away in a patrol car. Days later, the father tells Syracuse that Ondine will be deported, but Syracuse mentions that he will marry her so he can obtain citizenship and remain in Ireland. Thus, Syracuse and Ondine get married and manage to build a new family with their daughter, Annie. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos like this. See you in the next movie.